Hi, everybody. This is your friend Daniel Hutchins. And today we are going back to our friend Screen Rant. Yes, we're going back to our friend Screen Rant. And we're going to be talking about some stuff. Okay, you want to know why Morbius's box office had beat the bad reviews? Well, we can tell you. Okay, Morbius was able to take us in top spot in the box office despite having a negative reception. How does it do that? And can it be used to that become a success? 20 hours ago. Okay, there are spoilers for the new movie in the Spider Man universe, Morbius. Now, Morbius is a box office was able to beat its bad reviews. This is how it happened. The late installment of the Sony Spider Man universe was widely considered to be dead on arrival between the critical reception. But despite the bad press surrounding that movie, Morbius still took the first place in the box office on the opening weekend. There are varieties of reasons for how Morbius was able to pull this off. But the real question is, how is it able to perform going forward? That's the real question. Okay? So Morbius was looked at with lots of skepticism even before it was released. From the very start, there was an idea of a superfluous surrounding the Marvel Comics adaptation of the Living Vampire, again, the Spider Man antagonist, and after negative reception of the version of the Joker from Suicide Squad, the casting of Jared Leto in the titular Morbius wasn't seen as a vote to confidence in the movie quality. Sure enough, though, after the release, Morbius was met with largely negative receptions from fans or critics alike who criticized, among other things, of the story, character, visual effects, or confusing way to connect to the Marvel Universe. Again, so related to this article, Morbius has Spider-Man Easter eggs and Marvel references. We're not talking about that, we're talking about someone else. Now, despite the negative reception, however, Morbius was still able to open in the number one in the box office considering how Morbius is a Marvel superhero movie. It is just strange it didn't fall in line with the take of the top spot in the first weekend. Again, we just said it just took a spot in the weekend. Again, there are still a variety of factors to consider for how it was able to pull this off and how quickly it's been written off. At some same time, it's important to think about whether or not Morbius will be able to keep its momentum going or either become a box office success or at the very least have a break even. Again, why are Morbius reviews so bad? You want to know why Morbius reviews are so bad? I can tell you. Morbius saw universally negative reception from critics upon the release. The reasons that are not unfounded. Many critics found this story and the characters to be uninspired or uninteresting, and visual effects look too cheap to be ignored. All those were criticisms that people had the initial trailers. So seeing the final product didn't do anything to fix it, just made it worse. One of the biggest stick points, however, was the way Morbius tries to connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ever since Morbius' first trailer showed Michael Keaton's Vulture, there is speculation on how the movie would connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Morbius post-credit scene answers this question by revealing Vulture was accidentally sent to Morbius' universe via from a spell from Doctor Strange at the end of No Way Home. He then seeks out Morbius and proposes that they team up. Likely, though, this sets up the cinematic version of the Sinister Six. Although scenes are highly criticized or panned because not only does this reveal seem to be completely inconsistent with how Doctor Strange's spell works in No Way Home, but Vulture both has to assume that Spider-Man is in fault and doesn't express any concern of his family. Two things that contradict the character as he's portrayed in Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, in common criticism of the Sony Marvel movies under Sony's Spider-Man Universe banners, it says that it's been that's not entertaining to watch movies about Spider-Man characters that don't feature Spider-Man, while the Venom movies largely managed to subvert that. Again, Morbius fully learns to take the poor plot and visuals and the ending potentially being used to set up the Sinister Six doesn't help that much because it's likely means more movies focus on the Spider-Man characters not interacting with Spider-Man, with no way of knowing if there will be a clear, consistent way to pay off the work. If it's very reminiscent of how the Amazing Spider-Man 2 set up their sequels and spin offs to detriment of their own story. In their own regard, it makes sense that Morbius would be criticized for going through same motion. Okay, why Morbius box office wasn't killed by bad reviews. Okay, despite having so much stacked along it, we know Morbius still managed to take first place in the box office for its opening weekend. There are some possible reasons for how this happened. The more obvious reason for that is Morbius in the core is a superhero movie. With how popular and successful superhero movies have been in the past couple of decades, even if a new movie isn't well received, it's still likely to be a number one in the box office for an opening weekend. Not only this, but as previously stated, the biggest draw to Morbius was Michael Keaton's cameo as the Vulture. Speculation of how it would work to see someone that had no interest in seeing Morbius. It's possible that it would also go on to learn how it would play out. Okay, another possibility is the people decide to see Morbius either in spite of negative reviews or because of them. Again, former probably, but it could be that some people were interested in this movie, whether from the marketing or from being fans of Morbius in the comics or other media. Again, simply adamant about seeing it. Regardless of what the critics had to say, for the later, many people find it engaging, and specifically because it was bad. So Morbius been met with negative reception would only be boon to sort of audience. While it's not universal, though, for some people, these factors are also part to appeal to the Venom movies, which also performed well in box office, despite also being with negative receptions from critics. Will Morbius be a box office success? Well, that's a good question. Again, there are varieties of reasons why Morbius was able to attract a big audience in it during the opening weekend. It's highly unlikely that Morbius will be able to keep that going to become a box office success. Will Morbius did come to number one in the first weekend, it only grossed about $80 million worldwide. And since box office returns tend to gradually decrease every week, the movie total box office figure won't likely be as high as time goes on. Now, according to some reports via Forbes, in order for Morbius to break even, the movie would need to gross roughly about $300 million more dollars. And then if they start this off with a takeaway of only $80 million, it's hard to see if it's reaching this level. Therefore, if it's especially the case when a highly anticipated movie like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 or The Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore would draw some attention away of Morbius in the next weeks. Okay, or Morbius' bad reviews have problem despite their box office. Again, Morbius was able to take a first place in box office despite the bad reviews. The poor reception is likely to be a problem for the movie going forward. With Morbius having such negative reactions and starting even before its release, most of the conversation surrounding this film likely will be dominated by people talking about how bad it was. So anyone who hasn't seen it yet is likely to be talked out of doing so. Not helping matters any more worse than one of the biggest draws to the film. The mystery of the Vulture ending up in Morbius' universe has been highly publicized in the point. Anyone who has interested in connections in Marvel Cinematic Universe can just read about it online and not bother with watching that movie. Okay, so even the possibility of someone wanting to see Morbius in spite of because of negative reception might not want to, because previously stated the Venom movies had the same sort of appeal for many other people. But the major differences or draws between Morbius and Venom, both critically and financially, while all the three movies were marked rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage have scores of 30% or 58%. Respectively, though, Morbius only has a 16%. This could be low enough for people to think it's too bad they're worth bothering with. Added on to that, how Venom movies managed to gross over 100 million worldwide in their opening weekends. Despite negative critical reception, so comparatively easy for them to make profit, whereas Morbius will have a harder time of this thanks to making around only 80 million in the opening weekend. Morbius didn't crash and burn at the very start, despite bad reviews, but it's just to say that it's very hard for a movie to be able to succeed, regardless of the factors that turned away from Jared Leto as Morbius, will keep lingering about for as long as that is in theaters. The few things people draw to it is that it's only able to do so much going forward. With things being set aside, Morbius will likely be seen another example of Sony mishandling of Spider-Man brand, just like they aren't working with MCU. Okay, guys, so that's a little bit of rant about what's going on with Morbius. Okay, we're going back to our Screen Rant home page, and we're finding something else. Okay, you want to know what's going on with the Flash? I can tell you what's going on with the Flash. Ezra Miller's Flash DC Extended Universe future reportedly in doubt after his recent arrest. Okay, so following Ezra Miller's recent arrest, Warner Brothers and DC Films has reportedly held an emergency meeting about the Flash star's DC Extended Universe future 30 minutes ago. Following the Ezra Miller's recent arrest in Hawaii, the Flash movie star, again in his DC Extended Universe future, is reportedly in jeopardy after Warner Brothers and DC Films held an emergency meeting. Miller is one of the original DC Extended Universe actors that joined Warner Brothers and was cast as Barry Allen as early back as October 2014. The solo film was announced over 8 years ago but has faced multiple delays after being stuck in development hell. Miller has, again, however, shown up in other DC projects over the years, including cameos in The Suicide Squad and a cameo in Batman vs. Superman. While The Flash was directed by Andy Muschietti, finished principal photography last year, Warner Bros. Has to push it back again. Rather than arriving in November 2022, the studio delayed it now to June 2023. The special effects of the film are now finished, but now Warner Bros. And DC Films are facing different problems. Miller is now arrested in Hilo, Hawaii, due to disorderly conduct and harassments. Not long after, additional reports surfaced about a couple who filed a restraining order against the DC Extended Universe actor. Miller, who had reportedly broken into the apartment and had threatened to kill them while also stealing personal belongings. Okay. After those incidents, it appears that Miller's future in the DC Extended Universe might be about to change. Yes, it might be about to change. So, in a report from the Rolling Stone, their sources revealed that Warner Brothers and DC Films held an emergency meeting on March the 30th to discuss Miller's future in the DC Extended Universe. Due to the actor having arrested, we know Warner Brothers is reportedly hitting pause on any future appearances of the actor. Now, again, the involves of any cameos and development on potential sequels of The Flash, a decision that doesn't have to be made for at least a year, according to these articles. More is to come. Again, if we know more updates about The Flash, we'll let you know. But otherwise, we'll just keep this going. Okay, so again, The Flash, he's in jeopardy right now. He's been arrested, so just when y'all be aware of that. Okay, so okay. So yeah, okay. You want to know what else is going on in the universe. You want to know more about Sam Raimi. Okay. Sam Raimi, the director Sam Raimi, has only seen about 4 or 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness director Sam Raimi has confirmed he has only seen 4 or 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Okay, 30 minutes ago. Director Sam Raimi says he only saw about 4 or 5 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies before being the director of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The Marvel Studios franchise was launched back in 2008 thanks to Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau in Iron Man. Long before that, Raimi has already held his titles in the Marvel movie world, having spearheaded Sony's very first Spider-Man trilogy. Now he's also returning to the world of Marvel, although his eyes are one of the most highly anticipated movies to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4. Since Raimi has wrapped up the Toby since Raimi wrapped up the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, the landscape has also greatly have changed because for comic book movies in general, not only has Marvel all but taken over Hollywood, but releasing 27 films since 2008. But they are also most profitable blockbusters out there. Recently, Kevin Feige, the Marvel president, has said his team has recently expanded with the launch of the branch on Disney Plus. More Marvel Cinematic Universe films are coming, including the Multiverse of Madness, which again spearheaded by Sam Raimi. He isn't familiar with the bigger world that it belonged to, so he kind of needed to get catched up. Again, so speaking with the people of Fandango, as the movie ticket sales go on, the director has discussed the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how he's only seen a few of them. He's only seen a few of the movies. Now, despite this, Raimi shared he's well versed in the comics, especially since the 1970s and 1980s. This is why he knows so much about the character history in the print. You can read his quotes below. He said, I'd seen Iron Man, the First Avenger, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange. The little clips of other movies, they've made 28 movies, but really I've only seen 4 or 5. I'll say that I'm not that familiar, but sort of familiar. Again, sort of familiar, but not that familiar. There's part 1, by the way, and I love what I saw. It's not that familiar though, but as part 2, as a big giant fan of the Marvel comic books of the 1970s, 1980s, or even into 1990s, I was super hype and super familiar with the characters and their stories and their interactions. That's why Marvel movies are based on. So that was my answer. Okay, now for some reason, this might seem like a red flag. After all, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is known for having interconnected storytelling. The franchise continued to evolve, but again, more difficult to preserve the established continuity. Again, audiences have several lingering questions about who's not that familiar with the movie of Doctor Strange. Again, Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness might create some more inconsistency. Maybe might have some inconsistency. Now, thankfully, the existence of the multiverse has allowed Marvel Studios to have the quick fix do up regarding with these issues. Now, in any case, Feige and the studios and their team has dedicated to overseeing that with upcoming projects to ensure they do not blatantly contradict the past ones. Instead, Raimi's unfamiliarity with the Marvel Cinematic Universe might actually be a good thing for Doctor Strange, because in the Multiverse of Madness, one of the biggest criticisms from the franchise is the formula approach to the storytelling. Raimi coming in with barely having any idea what the formula was, helping him create something totally fresh and new for the viewers. In his point in the Marvel history, there's more important than ever. The Marvel Cinematic Universe needs to continue holding the audience interest for foreseeable films, again, in foreseeable future. Fortunately, the MCU, he's only seen about some of the best of the franchise. So it's only just to take away what he found from them and marry it into his own sort of movies making. Then it's safe to say Doctor Strange the Multiverse and Madness would be great. Okay, so again, let me know your thoughts about the Sam Raimi and how he's only seen some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Again, and do you think that's a good thing or do you think that's a bad thing? I want to know your thoughts. It's really important. So we are almost going 20 minutes. So I figure I wrap this up. And again, guys, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. I'm just hanging out on the bed. You see, I got my lineups and stuff, my Justice League lineup, my Star Wars lineup, my Marvel, and my other DC lineups. Again, I also took down my swimsuit calendar. I have something else on my wall now. But yeah, guys, things are all right. Yeah, things are good. I had some lunch. I had McDonald's for lunch, so it was pretty good. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. See you guys around. Bye, everybody.